Multiple choice questions versus constructed response questions, the difference in student performance by Robin Fox. Introduction. Assessment is necessary in order to determine whether students have met the learning objectives and have required a desired learning outcome. There are many forms of assessments used to measure knowledge and achievement. Multiple choice questions and constructed response questions are the most popular item formats used in educational setting. Multiple choice items traditionally consist of a statement that describes a problem, a series of options or alternatives, each representing possible answers to complete the statement. Constructed response questions require students to generate and construct an answer to an open-ended item, allow direct measurements of behaviors specified in a performance objective, and require students to provide a response rather than to select from alternatives provided. The purpose of this study is in the last 2 years, the types of questions students in high school are seeing on the Georgia End-of-Course Test and other standardized tests have changed. Students are asked more constructive response questions about a passage instead of multiple choice questions. The purpose of my research is to see to what extent there are differences in the student performance on constructed response versus multiple choice questions. The research question is, to what extent do students perform differently on multiple choice questions versus constructed response questions that measure the similar content? The importance of the study is to promote a higher order thinking skills. The usage of constructed response questions is increasing on the Georgia Milestones Assessments and End-of-Course Test. In our schools, students are struggling with these changes. The importance of the study is to provide information on the differences students perform in the multiple choice format and the constructed response format. The literature review states that multiple choice questions are relatively free from scoring biases and a wider sample of course content with minimal grading of lower potential for measurement error, while constructed response questions test a deeper understanding of subject material. They examine the scope and depth of knowledge and require the ability to organize thoughts into a cohesive manner. The research methods that are used are qualitative and quantitative, both in this study. Student scores from both multiple choice and constructed response assessments in coordinate algebra were pulled as the quantitative inquiry, and interviews with students who participated in both assessments were conducted for further qualitative exploration. 43 students completed both summative assessments out of 45. A multiple choice assessment was administered first, and then a constructed response assessment second. For the constructed response question assessment, math grading rubric was used. 6 students were interviewed about the multiple choice assessments versus the constructed response assessment. Interviews were transcribed into text, placed into segments, labeled, and coded. Once codes were reduced from overlapping, then the codes were collapsed into themes. The results of the quantitative data is that there is a positive correlation between multiple choice and constructed response questions. The mean average percent of correct items for constructed response questions is 64% higher than the 41% of the multiple choice questions. In comparing the students' scores of both assessments, scores increased in the constructed response assessment. The better the students performed on the multiple choice question assessment, the better they performed on the constructed response question assessment. The results of the qualitative data, through the coding of the interview transcripts, 3 themes emerged: time to complete, grading, and feedback. The findings of the multiple choice questions versus the constructed response questions revealed that the students found advantages to both multiple choice and constructive response. Multiple choice questions required less time to complete and a timelier feedback, while the constructed response required more time to complete but received partial credit for answers. Students scored higher on the constructed response items compared to the multiple choice items. However, interviews revealed that students favored the multiple choice questions because of shorter time required to complete them. Educators need to integrate multiple choice questions as well as implement constructed response questions to promote cognitive thinking and to prepare students to be more confident and efficient problem solvers. The implications of the practice are that constructed response questions require students having additional effort and emotional energy in order to select, organize, and express their ideas compared to the multiple choice questions. Teachers need to consider the amount of time given to students to complete the constructed response questions. Also, students want feedback in a timely manner. Teachers should pay attention to if they are giving feedback and the time frame that is relevant for the content. Further research. A larger group of participants is needed to validate the results. With the larger sample, there needs to address the different grade levels of students from elementary to middle and high school students for the inquiry to include different levels of cognitive development. Also to encompass all 4 academic subjects of math, science, social studies, and language arts, to explore the differences of multiple choice questions versus constructive response based on the content. At last are the references, and that is the end of our slideshow.